Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hanging in There with Leighann Lord. This is my brand new show, and I just want to let you know right up front that this show is all your fault. Okay, because people kept saying and kept asking me, Leighann, how come you don't have a live stream show? Leighann, how come you don't have a YouTube show? And I kept trying to tell people that I don't have a show because I didn't feel like I had anything to say. Yeah, moving on. So I figured, let me give this some thought. And if I'm going to have a show needs a name. And I kind of like to reverse engineer things, sort of get inspired from the other end of it. And at first I thought about using my hashtag, which is Life with Leighann. And then I thought, no, that sounds like a show that people are sentenced to watching. And I don't want any hostages. I want you to want to be here. Someone suggested to me, Everybody Loves Leighann. And I'm like, no, I can't use that either because nothing could be further from the truth. Not everybody loves Leighann, okay? Dead dad, I'm single, I have a cat. So yeah, not everybody loves Leighann. Maybe that would be an aspirational title, but I'm not doing that. And then I thought, what about hanging in there? Because with everything that's going on in the world right now, when you ask somebody how they're doing, they say hanging in there. And everybody knows what that means. Now, I may not know exactly what it means for you, but I know what it means for me. And in that sense, we are kind of connected in the madness that's going on. So ergo, the name of my new show, Hanging in There with Leighann Lord, and I hope you hang in there with me. Now, before I get to the topic of this episode, I want to share a couple of things that I posted this week. If you follow me on social media, then you know I do something called Lighthearted History. And I had two posts this week that really tickled me, and then I want to share. The first one is from June 30th, and it says, on this day in 1979, the single Good Times is released by Chic and becomes the Billboard Song of the Year. It goes on to be the least played song in 2020. The second one I like is from July 2nd. And it says, on this day in 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act into law. And they live happily ever after. I guess I should let you know at this point that sarcasm will be on 10 in this show. I hope you enjoy it, especially since it's not personally directed at you, but always fun as a spectator sport, I think. So, but those two lead me into the topic of the day of this show, which is, should I stay or should I go? Subtitle, Blaxit. And Blaxit is sort of a play on Brexit. Brexit meaning the United Kingdom voting to leave the EU, and African Americans deciding to leave the United States. And that's a thing that's actually been happening. It's nothing new, but with all the things that are going on in the world and in the news, there's been a sort of resurgence in the interest in the topic, and not just celebrities, I mean everyday people. And so I've come across many articles, and people have sent me stuff, in particular the article that appeared in USA Today. I will say in terms of titles, I enjoy it. I'm leaving and I'm just not coming back. Fed up with racism, Black Americans head overseas. One of the quotes in the article that really resonated with me was this. Asked whether Black people should confront racism at home rather than leave, he said, why shouldn't they just live? If a white person leaves America and goes somewhere for work or better opportunities, no one would say to them they need to stay and fight for racial equality. Black people have a double burden of being discriminated against and having to stick around. Black Americans have been trying to escape American racism, from segregation to heinous organized violence, such as lynchings, for generations. So this isn't new. And I got to say that that quote really resonated with me because I'll be honest, you guys, I don't want to fight. I just want to live. You know, I want to drink good wine. I want to wear cute shoes. I want to tell great jokes, you know, but unfortunately here, life in these United States as a black person, as an African American, as a person of color, as a woman, you know, just pile on, you know, I don't understand why I don't get handicap parking for this. That we're called to more. And so I figured with these articles that I'm reading and with the resurgence of interest, I wanted to gauge what people out there were feeling. And so I did a very informal Twitter poll. I am in no way usurping Gallup's lead in this space, but I said, let me just do a Twitter poll and see what folks are thinking. And I just said, hey fam, if given the opportunity, would you leave the United States and go live in another country? That's what I asked. And I got to tell you, I was really shocked at the results. That's right. 86% of respondents to my little poll said that they would leave the United States. Now, if you're a little fuzzy on the math, there, 86% basically means more than half and almost all. You know, that's a lot of folk. That's a lot of people. I did a similar poll on Facebook, not necessarily for the numbers, because that's really not how Facebook works, but just, again, to get a sense of and have a little deeper level of engagement. And I was shocked by that as well. I mean, so many people, you know, the majority of the responses were, yes, hell yes, I want to get out of here. Now, here's where I went wrong. At the outset, I said this really was about African Americans and people of color, you know, Blaxit, people, Black Americans wanting to leave the United States. But I wasn't that clear in my Facebook question. And so the majority of the responses were from white folks who said they want to leave the United States. Like a lot of white people want to leave. And I'm thinking, well, if all y'all leave, then maybe things might be better here. You know, I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. That's a distinct possibility. But what I liked about the post that I did on Facebook, aside from the number of responses, you guys were so generous in responding. But it wasn't just, you know, the straight yeses or the straight nos. It was the thoughtfulness of the responses, you know, for the people that said no, and that was a much smaller group. The people said no, they want to stay. There were various reasons that people actually took the time to list and enumerate why they would stay. A lot of it, some of them said that they felt that they had a responsibility to stay and make things better. I find that admirable. Some people wanted to stay or will stay because of the investment that they've already made, both generationally and financially. I completely understand that. Some people were brutally honest and said that they were staying simply because they had aged out of the opportunity to leave the United States. Believe it or not, countries do have an age requirement when you try to immigrate there. And listen, America doesn't want her old people. So I can pretty much guarantee you that other countries don't want America's old people. There's just no upside. You know, first of all, they're old. Second of all, there'll be a drain on resources. And please understand, I am defining old using the American definition, you know, in the way that we worship. We have a youth culture that we just worship. So old by American standards is 30. If you haven't left by 30, there's really no shot for you. Honestly, this is really all your mom's fault. Her water should have broke in another country when she was having you to give you maximum opportunities, which means women should be, you know, month 8, 9, just, you know, getting on planes and traveling elsewhere. Once again, when we have that opportunity. I was also taken by the qualified yeses. Like the people said, yes, they want to leave America. They would absolutely leave this country. But, so a lot of qualifying, like, yeah, I want to go. But some of those were, yeah, I would leave, but my family. Would they go with me? Would they be okay? Are my kids grown enough? They're too grown. I want to watch them and have grandkids. So your family is a big reason why some people are ultimately deciding to stay. They want to go, but they stay. Some people say they don't want to go. They have dogs. They have allergies. They have dogs with allergies. There are all kind of reasons why people are going to stay ultimately, but it's fun to think about leaving. I was also taken with the people who were not only just strong yeses, but again, gave me a little bit more. There were some folks that as they were responding, they were like, Leighann, I already left. So sucks to be you, like already gone. Like I'm late to the party. There were some folks that have left the United States and come back. We have a huge expat community around the world. And so people have done this bounce back and forth several times. And they're actually in a unique position, depending on where they've been, to sort of give an informed opinion on what it's like living elsewhere. Some of them talk about trying to choose between convenience, which is American life, and versus quality of life in other places. And I get convenience. It's kind of like, you want to leave the abusive relationship, but you're used to it. You're used to the convenience of it. So you go back to the bastard. I'm conflating. Anyway, one of the things that came through why people have left and come back to the United States, why they enjoy still being here, believe it or not, indoor plumbing. Apparently, we can't get it right in terms of everybody having the right to vote, gerrymandering, yeah, that's the thing. We can't get it right in terms of people not being murdered by the police. But man, when it comes to indoor plumbing, United States has it down. We are not going to be a shithole country on that score. So yeah, I mean, listen, having traveled, I've traveled around the world. Yeah, indoor plumbing's a thing. I think I might be willing to give it up, because I mean, people have bathrooms, do I need the American quality? Yeah, I could go without it. I would have toilet paper shipped to me though. That'd be awesome. But now here's the thing. If you are in that category of you're not, and nothing's holding you back. Yes, you want to go. You are thinking about it. You are planning on it. You've already left maybe. There are real considerations. Somebody said to me, oh, it's hard to think about leaving America, because anywhere you go in the world, people hate Americans. And I'm like, no, sweetie, they don't hate Americans. They hate white people. As an African American who's traveled, I really haven't had a problem. Matter of fact, what I get is sympathy, and people buy me drinks. So let's be real clear on what's happening when you leave. I think the biggest consideration, and a lot of people mention this, is language. If you're one of those Americans and you only speak English, that might restrict your options, because I think it only makes sense and it's only respectful that you be able to speak the primary or dominant language of where you're going, because not doing so can really restrict your opportunities. Now, yes, I know English is spoken everywhere, but if you're not going to be living in the main cosmopolitan or urban area of the city, you might want to have some familiarity with the language or restrict yourself to English speaking countries. Now, there's still quite a few. So it's not exactly like you've cut off everywhere, but knowing the language, I think is an important consideration. What about your connections and family? If you read the article or any article that I've read, again, I refer to the USA Today article, the folks that left either had family in the countries that they were going to, or family went with them. They had some sort of support. They had some kind of connections. The American myth of being rugged and going on your own, is the American myth. You really need people, especially if you're going for more than just an extended vacation, or, you're backpacking through someplace. If you're talking about putting down roots, you need a little bit more support than that. And so you also want to consider, this came up in the article, I mean, this is hilarious. What is the cultural, political scene of where you're going to? You don't want to go from bad to worse. And in the article, I almost screenshot it. Somebody said, well, yeah, if you come to the UK, yeah, we're racist here, but it's not as bad as American racism. So if you're marking racism on a curve, if you can put up with American racism, whoo, you'll do fine in England. That racism will just roll off your back. You already did the Olympics of racism. England, whew, oh my gosh, what is that? The World Cup? What are we talking? So, you know, I've given this some thought, and I had several people suggest, what about Africa? And Africa is not a country, I mean the continent, but there are several countries within Africa that have been very receptive to African Americans coming back home, so to speak. I cannot speak knowledgeably about that. I have not traveled as well traveled as I am. I'm embarrassed to say I've only been to one African country. I went to Djibouti, which never stops being fun to say. It just doesn't. It's funny every time. So I went to Djibouti, and I do not think that is representative of what the other countries in Africa have to offer. I just sadly can't speak to it. What I can say is that hopefully if we get to a place where we can travel again, perhaps I will have the opportunity to dip my toe into the, the the homelands of my ancestors, and see if that's a possibility for me. Uh, but I will say that looking at the things that I think are important or that were pointed out, you know, in terms of language, in terms of family connection, in terms of opportunity, that makes my choices really, really small in terms of places I want to go. It actually narrows it down to 3 places. England, because I do have family in England, and we're pretty close, but I'm actually not sure if we're close because we're logistically distant. You know what I mean? Like we could be close because I live here and they live there. Like I could move there and then suddenly we're not that close because you know how family is. The second place would be Brooklyn. I'm sorry, let me do this right. The People's Republic of Brooklyn. That's an option. Well, not financially. I can't afford Brooklyn. Brooklyn's out of my price range. And the third place that I could go and actually would want to go is Wakanda. Because listen, y'all, I already have my passport. I've done the paperwork. I'm ready to go. So yeah, those are my 3 choices. But you know, in all seriousness, this conversation really got me thinking. All right, so you want to go? Things are bad. You're upset. You're disgusted. You're whatever it is. You're ready to leave. What does that actually take to say, listen, water my plants, forward my mail, I'm out of here? And it got me thinking about the people who are actually immigrants, the people who actually have the bravery and the fortitude and the courage to do that, to leave everything that they've known to start a life somewhere else, and possibly not reap the benefits for themselves, but for 1 or 2 generations later. Now that's a lot of sacrifice. And that really got me thinking about my family. You know, I'm second generation American, second generation New Yorker. Those are 2 very different things, everybody. You can be an American, yeah, that's great. You can be a New Yorker, you know, and New Yorkers, you know, according to the governor, we are kind, we are loving, we're different. Um, but yeah, I'm second generation American. 3 of my grandparents came here from the Caribbean at Jamaica, Barbados, and Trinidad. That's a lot of curry. That's a lot of work ethic. But yeah, I am here. I am an American. I am a New Yorker because my grandparents made a decision that's now 4 generations deep. I don't know if I'm made like that. You know, it's a lot to consider. in a very serious way. And, then it really comes down to the big question. Do I leave? Do I keep on hanging in there? Hey, you guys, that's my show. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. And I just want to let you know that I really appreciate it. And if you enjoy what I do, my tip jars are always open. That's PayPal, that's Venmo, that's Cash App. If you're a Hogwarts fan, just wrap some dollars, dinero around the leg of an owl, shoot it in my direction. I'm Ravenclaw. It'll work. In the era of having to stay woke, you could just buy me a cup of coffee. That works too. But in the meantime, I really appreciate you watching the show. And until next time, keep hanging in there.
Perfect.